else? Dave Halen, Ron Hines.
Oh, hello.
It's
Nicole.
it's 8 o'clock, and I got a feeling that tonight may run a little bit long. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it off, and as people come in, I'll admit them, and I'll try to juggle being both the presenter and the admin facilitator tonight. So if I'm a little bit slow, bear with me. And I got my first response here from Tony from Connecticut. He said, just wanted to say thanks. Really appreciated last week's Tribe Talk. It has global application. And I'll let Sarah in here and John, and I'll go ahead and kick things off for the evening. So welcome to Tribe Talks. Can everybody see the screen? Did it come up okay? All right.
Yeah.
So like normal, Tribe Talk is a group of like-minded people who come together more in common than differences. It's a dialogue with rider coaches to enhance communications and help develop an improvement culture. More specifically, and kind of the caveat for all this is that it is an independent event. It's not sponsored by any organization, regardless of who shows up. So, we're welcoming a pretty much all rider coaches here, with our one motive being to improve the tribe. Tribe Talk etiquette for new people tonight. I'll let you read down through that real quick. If you've been here before, nothing has changed. If you do get bumped, or if I get bumped because of technical difficulties tonight, just hold on a second, reboot, get back in, and we'll continue on if there are. Lurkers are welcome. You don't have to feel obligated to participate, but we hope that you do, because the dialogue is important and your ideas and your thoughts are helpful to everybody who joins us here tonight. Tonight, we're going to go full 6 syllables on our word. It's called interconnectedness, and just some stuff I threw together randomly. I will honestly admit I didn't put a lot of time and effort into making it a really great presentation, but more so because I just want to hear your thoughts and have a dialogue about the subject. We'll do an overview of everything that we've done since the beginning of Tribe Talks, and I'll explain that a little bit later. And then, of course, our weekly poll. So the first thing I want to talk about tonight is the definition of interconnectedness, because we kind of discussed this at happy hour this week, and I've used some of that input into this presentation. So first thing I want to show you is dictionary.com's definition of interconnectedness. And then Merriam-Webster's definition of interconnected. They didn't add the extra syllable on it. They figure everybody could figure that one out. And then I've got a couple references, and I'll show it at the end of the presentation tonight, but Kane & Kane probably has one of the best interconnectedness definitions when it comes to brain-based learning. So I'll let you read through those for a couple minutes. If you have any questions, go ahead and shout it out.
As having been a former editor, I love any definition that uses the word within the definition.
Yeah, you gotta love that. When you get to 6 syllables, though, I don't think you cannot not do that. So the last thing there at the bottom is by a man named Warren Berger. And he wrote this excellent book called A More Beautiful Question. And I'll show you here right there. If you're familiar with it, great. If not, it'll be on the references for this. And one of the things that he discussed in this book is, why aren't we asking more questions? So that's where this comes from. Why, meaning why is anything the way it really is? If there's a problem, why is there a problem with it? Number two, what if we approached it from a different angle or addressed it from a different perspective? Tonight, I'm going to link it to interconnectedness a little bit. And then his last question is how? How do you fix it? So in order to change anything in our lives, whether it be rider coaching, our personal self, or the rider coach community here, we first have to ask, why is something the way it is? Why, in my particular case, I'd like to ask, why aren't we communicating better? Why aren't we communicating more? What if we all get together and we start sharing ideas, thoughts, tactics, techniques, and how we do things, and how do we go about that? And so this was kind of one of the questions I started asking when Tribe Talks came together. We got a small group of people and started to address, why are things the way they are? What if we did something different and new, and how would we go about it? So I think that's important to help define where we're going a little bit with interconnectedness tonight. Any questions thus far? All right. So last Wednesday in happy hour, I threw out the 6-syllable word of interconnectedness. And these are some of the responses that we got back from the people who joined happy hour. So take a look at that list. And I know it's a laundry list and I apologize, but it's pretty important. And then if something strikes you as interesting, tell me why, if you would, please. Betsy's smiling. I don't know why. Go ahead, Dennis.
I think I'm looking at here is student connectedness. How do you, every coach, I would believe, would want to connect with their students that they have to try to get a good rapport going with them to help them get through the class. And you can relate to that, to me, with the human connectedness as well, because you want to connect with anybody you talk to.
Okay, I would agree. Anybody else?
Don, I'm fascinated with multidisciplinary synchronicity.
You like that one, Dave?
These are highfalutin words here for us all.
Well, I have a feeling I know what you're talking about, and of course the first thing that struck me is Sting and the song Synchronicity.
Exactly what was talked about in happy hour this week, Dave.
Gotcha. Well, multidisciplinary to me means various tasks and jobs, and I guess in the context of training someone how to ride a motorcycle, you certainly want to be in synchronicity, and then of course that's where the connection or connectedness comes in. If you don't connect with your students, they're not likely to learn much of anything.
So the author of that phrase is actually with us tonight. Nicole, would you mind telling us what your thoughts were?
Sure. When you brought up the whole idea of interconnectedness and said that you were getting ready to do it as a tribe talk, I started thinking about all the other tribe talks we had and how we've had all these people from multiple backgrounds and multiple disciplines, and yet somehow it all comes together and is all pertinent and connected and relevant to what we do. And that was kind of where that phrase came from.
And so the phrase that followed that, of course, came naturally after that. And I think, did you bring that up, Betsy?
I just think we had a good conversation about the importance of connectedness in order to do what we're doing in terms of teaching people skills and helping them to work together to learn from each other.
Any other comments that strike you from this laundry list of things we came up with?
Well, it's not really any individual statement. It's taking them as a whole. I view interconnectedness basically as sort of the way I visualize it is it's sort of a web-like structure made up of the relationships of everything that's involved in whatever it is you're doing. And it's not the same for everybody, but it's the relationships of all the parts that are brought into whatever the focus is.
Okay, thanks, Mark. And that really is kind of the theme of what's going on here tonight. You know, Dennis brings up, you know, student or human connectedness. You know, of course, we all want to connect with our students because that's when good learning happens. And then, you know, you can read through everything else, but that's the main reason why we're here. Now, we bring things from all of our different areas of expertise. Hey, Kelly, where do you work when you're not rider coaching, or where did you work if you were rider coaching?
I was a engineer in a nuclear power plant. I am now retired.
Thank you. I appreciate that. How about Betsy? I know you've got an interesting background. Where did you work at?
I worked in a psychiatric center and in the mental health field for almost 30 years.
So you feel at home with all these crazy people.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say too. Betsy fits in real good.
What about
the skills
Mike?
come in handy.
How about you, Mike or Josh?
I do engineering. Monday through Friday, I work for a place that makes hot tubs. So it's a lot of fun.
Hey, you just got some hot tubs?
Yeah.
And I didn't hear you, Mike. I apologize.
Yeah, sorry, I was typing when you asked. Over the years, I've done a little bit of everything from being a EMT paramedic to retail sales management. And my most recent job, though I'm pretty sure it's over officially at this point, was data analysis for a chemical manufacturer.
So the point I'm trying to get at with all this is we bring our own previous experiences to this game. And believe it or not, even though education seems to be the same for everybody, it's not. We bring those specialties, and we hope that we connect with our students in a way that allows them to unify with us, as somebody said over at happy hour, as motorcyclists, unifying this special tribe together, because, you know, who knows who the future coaches are going to be. We want them to feel like they're a part of our tribe. Yes or no?
Absolutely, yes.
All right. So with that, I'll move on just a little bit here. So I've kind of divvied up interconnectedness into 3 separate topics here. And I'm going to start with holistic, like one over the world, where I think interconnectedness gives us what we need as rider coaches. And the first is the big picture. Everything is connected. And I think Mark may have alluded to this. Our brains are a network of thoughts and neurons and ideas and previous experiences melding together to form who we are. But everything is connected. If you think about the outside, I like to think of things like an ecosystem. So, you know, we we work together to build an ecosystem of knowledge. And, you know, we have our grade school teachers, our middle school teachers kind of help us build that base of knowledge. High school, if you've gone to college or graduate school, all that stuff comes together, as well as our life experiences that we've talked before, and we become a whole person or a whole society or community or nation, since it's the 4th of July, built upon similar experiences or like experiences, and we're all interconnected in some way or another. Has anybody ever heard the term, what I'm trying to think of here, has to do with Kevin Bacon? Who can help me out here?
6 degrees.
What is it?
separation.
9 degrees of separation?
Okay, 9
6
degrees,
degrees?
6 degrees,
Something.
6 degrees. I thought with
6
Kevin
degrees.
Bacon, it was like 3 degrees. I mean, it
It's
was
whatever.
Like, yeah, whatever it is. But we're all, you know, just a step away from being next to somebody else. And Tony brought up like-minded individuals couldn't be more simple, like-minded shared goals, 6 degrees of separation. So does science, society and humanity, physical world and meaning making, does it all seem to unwrap this whole thing about interconnectedness? You know, to build a society, we kind of need some kind of common bond, just like this tribe has a common bond. Or in our physical world, do we need certain things to survive? Isn't that like the basis of our being, is to survive in a physical world? So in a big picture, we're all connected by being human beings on this planet and trying to survive in one way or another. Does that make sense, or am I off base here? Okay, I got a thumbs up, a few head nods. I'm going to jump into this assumption, and this I got from a book by Robert Knowles called The Adult Learner. And there's actually 3 or 4 different other authors, but this is based upon his work. And a part of it has to talk about how we learn. And so Lindemann's assumptions are that these 5 things, and they should sound pretty familiar if you've ever been in a Rider Coach guide. So can I have somebody read number 1 for me, please?
Yeah, Don, I'll do it. It's adults are motivated to learn as they experience needs and interests that learning will satisfy.
So we need motivation to learn, right? We have a need to learn, and that gives us our motivation. What about number 2?
I kind of agree that in the classes that we all teach, the students that we have there, they're all adults, and they're there because they want to be there, not because they have to be there. Does everybody agree with me on that one?
No.
For the most part.
In
Can
Texas,
somebody-
it's the only path to get a license. So people are there because they have to. Also, they use it for ticket dismissal. And sometimes you get the wives that are there, or the spouse that's there because the spouse wants them to be there and they don't want to be there.
Yeah, I've seen that before.
But let me ask you this, Kelly. If it's mandatory, that they have to take the class, aren't they motivated to ride the motorcycle through taking the class regardless?
Yeah, I believe that's partly true. You know, some of them come upset because they have to do it. But there's various motivations, yes.
Sure. Sure.
Well, one of the things in Missouri nowadays with taking the classes is, and this started 2 years ago, is you can get if you successfully pass this course, you can get a full license waiver. In other words, you just you get the card, you go to DMV, pay the fees, you get the endorsement. Beforehand, you would have to take the Missouri written test in order to get the endorsement. That changed a couple of years ago. But to me, that's a motivation. I see that with a lot of students.
Welcome, Daryl. Can somebody read number 2 for me, please?
I will. Adults' orientation to learning is life-centered.
What does that mean to everybody?
We build our learning on experiences we've encountered in life.
Okay, and that leads to number 3. Can you read that one, Dave?
Certainly, experience is the richest source for adults' learning.
Okay, previous learning is basis for new learning. Can somebody read number 4?
Adults have a deep need to be self-direction.
And what does that mean to everybody? Let me propose it in a question then. What if I told you how to live your life? How would you feel?
That's
I
un-American.
wouldn't like that one, Don. I see where you're going with this now.
Okay, so we have this feeling that we are adults and we should be involved in making our own path, yes or no?
Yes.
Well, could that be somewhat related to number 3 as with number 4? Because adults experience the richest source for adult learning, but then adults also have a need to be self-direction. So if they're learning, they have to direct their learning to a certain path, if you want to call it.
So what you're saying is these all are interconnected, Dennis?
I want to say yes in some respects. You know, some people might disagree with me. Some people might agree. Anybody got a comment on that one, if I may?
I certainly wouldn't argue against interconnectedness since that's tonight's subject.
And so what about number 5?
Individual differences among people increase with age.
Yes.
And why is that important for us to understand?
Because as we grow our and things that we're around, we change throughout our life. We're always growing and changing.
Well, I would hope so, sure. But, you know, because we have so many differing experiences, the longer life, the more experiences, you know, we are less and less like each other. So if you're a child in kindergarten, your experiences are very similar compared to an adult who has, you know, lived a full life and gone and done things that adults are capable of doing, being self-directed and all, correct? So I think Lindemann's assumptions are important here in that it gives us an idea of our interconnectedness as adults and adults in learning, but it also lets us know that we're not all the same, and that's good too. Wouldn't you agree? So we'll go to the next slide. And this talks a little bit more about education. And I've kind of given you a little preview of this in talking about a child that goes to kindergarten, you know, or middle school or high school. Do we kind of specify separate tasks to learn in those particular courses that we take throughout our educational career? Silence is consent, I guess. All right. So does music have any connection to math?
Absolutely.
Does math have any connection to history?
Yeah.
Where? What? Give me an example.
Well, with history, you know, like, let's say as an example, World War I or World War II, what kind of math were they using then to defeat the enemy? You know, I'm no history expert by any means, folks, so I'm just going by what I've learned in school, which, you know, how many decades ago was that? But the point being, use math, I think, a lot more in your life than you use history, but then it depends on your preference. Do you like history more than you like math?
I think history is documented in an algorithm of numbers, isn't it?
Well, and I would argue, Don, that historical events frequently have their roots in mathematical formulas, strength in numbers. How long's a ladder to get over a castle wall, to get over the moat, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, like Pythagorean theorem that we use today, part of history. You know, to build roofs.
There are significant changes in history as technology developed. Construction techniques, transportation techniques had significant effects on the world as technologies developed, and those technologies were generally dependent on mathematics.
Okay. So that leads us to the next topic, science. Is that interconnected with history and math?
With math, I think so, yes.
What about language? Why is it important to all of those topics?
Well, that's the key to interconnectedness, isn't it?
Well, yeah. What if you go to a different country and don't understand the languages? Can you put
language
it together?
gives you the ability to describe all those different pieces and talk about them.
Sure.
Yeah.
But a number of those topics can also exist without language. You can do music without being able to understand the language. Same with math and some aspects of science.
Can you teach it without language?
I would
Yes.
argue that music is its own language.
Okay. I'm waiting for Chris to chime in on this. Maybe not speak it with words, right?
Yeah, that's pretty much already been covered. Yes, correct.
Oh, so we're going back to previous tribe talks now. You got something to add, Betsy?
Yeah, I was just going to say language also records history too. Language is a way to remember things that have occurred so that we can build upon them, or, as I said, remember them. I think they're all interconnected, and if you look at a lot of the ways kids are taught these days too, there's really not a discrete music, math, history, especially if you look at younger children's education. All the stuff gets addressed, but in a much more blended kind of a way. I think I mentioned to you, Don, that I have a friend who's a retired kindergarten teacher now, and we've had a lot of discussions about how to do that. It's not easy, but it is a way to kind of cover all bases in a very more creative way too.
I would agree wholeheartedly, and an example that I can give to this is that my wife was working in actually schools in Korea and Germany, and now here in the US, where almost half the day is experiential learning, where they take a topic and then they integrate all these things into the topic and spend a great deal of time collectively in social emotional learning with these young children and bring it all together. Whereas some of us look old enough, have enough gray hair to remember that you just went to math class, or you just went to music class, or you just went to history class. But interconnectedness is becoming much more important, even in education, because we're starting to see that you can't just specify separate topics. So how does that relate to rider education and what we do as coaches? What do you think about it?
Well, I think it's important to remember that our students have this wide variety of backgrounds, and we can often communicate more effectively if we can invite them to bring their experiences into the class rather than just having them rely on our experience. They can bring their knowledge and make their comparisons, in ways that they'll understand.
Any other thoughts?
That phrase, tell me more, that we were talking about, you know, I think that as we get more information from people, you know, we can then look at how we build upon that blend, you know, what people bring, how they learn. Those are just two ways, but really setting up a way that you can understand what connects people, you know, if there are any common denominators, or just how can you build on whatever connections there are, because I think the more connections there can be, whether it's a love of wanting to ride a motorcycle, that's what can really make the learning process exciting and hopefully positive and successful for people. That's what we want. We want people to be safe. We want them to experience success when we have them in our classes. And I'll shut up.
Any other thoughts? So Betsy brought out that, you know, we want to find out what the experiences of other people are. And Mark also brought out the fact that the more we know about them, the more connected we can be with the student to reach them. That's that transactional method that goes on between the student and the teacher. But what about the other students in the class? Does it help if they share their experiences with each other so that they learn from each other in the class as well?
Most definitely. If you have somebody who's knowledgeable about something, why not use their knowledge to add to your class?
Any other thoughts?
It also often helps that when an individual is explaining something to their peers, it's not necessarily so much what happens is that they're educating their peers. It's that they're working through the knowledge that they're acquiring, and by working on ways to communicate that, it helps them to clarify and solidify what they know as an individual. Sort of like, you know, with a reflection question of, you know, what would you tell somebody, what would you tell a new rider about, you know, and fill in the blank. It lets them work through all the different connections that they're making.
It also makes the class be more sociable, and students learn better in a social environment than one where they're isolated and you know, an island.
That they feel like they're part of their own tribe then?
Oh. All great points. All great points. And a great segue into the last slide that I have. Well, actually, one of two last slides I have on the topic. And so we've gone from a whole, we've discussed interconnectedness as education. Now we're talking about education or interconnectedness of self, with that personal interactions and perceptions that help us to understand others. And if I could, please, could somebody just cover the 4 bullets under the first big bullet?
Dawn, you want somebody to read it?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Sure, I got it. Personal interactions, perceptions, and understanding of others. First bullet, mindfulness, brain interconnectedness inherent in all social and physical phenomena. Second bullet, individual and cultural differences are respected. Do you want me to do the citations as well, or are you good?
You don't have to.
Perceptive transformation and critical reflectivity.
So both Mark and Lynn and Betsy brought in that social aspect of how learning happens, and the brain interconnectedness of that is inherent in all social and physical phenomena. Does that make sense?
It does. I could see it in classes where you have a number of people who are really self-conscious and uptight, and they actually relax when they hear from their peers who are also trying to learn how to ride, that they may be struggling with exactly the same things they are. I think it causes them to loosen up and hopefully become a little more comfortable with the activity as a whole.
So Chris and I have had a text conversation about the next one. Individual and cultural differences are respected. Can you give us any insight, Chris, on that particular topic?
Well, I think with the current events going on in the world, we all are more aware of, maybe than we were before, of cultural differences, how important they are, and how much we need to recognize them. So as related to motorcycle safety training, when we get individuals of diverse backgrounds here in our classroom, we need to have a certain level of understanding and preparedness to best assist them in their objectives.
Thank you, sir. Awesome. I like perspective transformation, and I'm going to give you a personal story on this specific one. And if you don't know, Masaru is a big influence on Knowles, and that's why he's in his book. I basically came of age in the military. So my mindset after growing up on a farm and being told what to do and having to get up and do farm chores was to go into the same kind of environment in the military where I had always someone directing me what to do. Sadly, though, I became self-directed at some point and I got tired of that. So I became the leader and started telling other people what to do. The problem with all of that is there's always somebody that's a little bit higher and always somebody, you know, that you have to count on. And it wasn't till late in my military career that I started understanding the interconnectedness of the people around me. And so where I used to use the power of my position to get things done, I transformed my perspective, hopefully, to understand where other people were coming from, to find what would best motivate them to do what we needed to do as a group. And so once you are able to change that perspective a little bit, it really opens up some great doors. And I will tell you, when I first became a rider coach, I still had a lot of that old me left over. You know, some people would reference the old curriculum where you stand, you give directions, and then you expect people to do it. And if it wasn't for a great mentor that pulled me aside one day and set me straight and started to lead me down a better path, you know, I could possibly still be that person. But I had to transform and open up doors in my mind to allow me to understand that I was going about things the right way. And so when we start talking about interconnectedness in the self, I think that's an important aspect. And that gets to what Nicole brought to Tribe Talks last week with mindfulness, or as Brookfield brings it up, critical reflectivity. So when I say critical reflectivity or mindfulness, what does that inspire in your brains? What do you think that means?
Self-reflection.
Okay, reflection.
Questioning.
Questioning.
Self-awareness.
Can you say that again, Kelly? I'm sorry.
Self-awareness.
Self-awareness. Good, good.
Self-evaluation.
Self-evaluation.
Mm-hmm.
I would expect that from you, Betsy.
Yeah.
So is that important?
Oh, yeah.
Why?
how do you improve without it?
What if? How? So if you can ask those 3 questions from earlier, why am I having this issue, or why are things this way? What if I tried something else, and how do I do it? We may never get to that critical reflectivity, that perspective transformation, and be able to connect with other people. Does that make sense?
There's some of that also is I could be wrong.
I was expecting you to go on, but you're right, Kelly. We all can be wrong, can't we?
If we're willing to admit it to ourselves, yes.
It's one of the hardest things to do. Whoops, I didn't let somebody in here. I apologize. See if he's still out there. So can somebody, let's not read this out loud, but let's go down individually and just kind of read the slide. The second larger bullet, and does anything in there strike you that you would like to talk about?
I think we need to appreciate we're social creatures, Don.
Does everybody agree? Any other strokes out there on that?
Well, the word benefit comes to mind as just a general word. People have to feel like there's a benefit to being interconnected, and they may not be able to describe it, but they have to see some purpose, feel some purpose in it for themselves, whether it's to learn or to have support for each other, for themselves. Isolation's a pretty awful feeling to have, I think. Yet some people live with that.
Does everybody feel like you've been somewhat isolated in the last several months?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And how do you feel about that?
I'd say there's 2 sides to that coin.
Yeah.
There are.
Sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad.
Yeah.
There are definitely people I don't mind not seeing since February.
I don't know about you guys, but my wife has been very happy. I've been home a lot the last couple of months. And I'm retired.
My wife couldn't believe that I said I didn't mind being at home, but I wasn't completely socially isolated. I was with her. Normally one of us is away at work somehow, somewhere. I have my son and my son's girlfriend living with us, so I got a lot of interactive going on there that I normally don't, because my son is usually away at college. So I kind of enjoyed it. Now, that being said, it did get kind of old having the same old repetitive old man conversations come out of my mouth to my son. And I started to realize that, I'm repeating some stories here. I better, change up the script a little bit. But yeah, we're social. And if you were completely alone through this, it would be devastating. And that was one of the conversations we had last week, or last Wednesday, when we were talking about the problems with the isolation. The isolation, I wish I could read my own handwriting.
In this day and age, do we really have isolation with television and social media? Those people who don't have that would be complete isolation, because without that, yes, stir crazy would be all the way.
But there is a psychological and health impact with relying just on Zoom and Facebook and not having that physical connection with other people. And an example I will give with that is my 84-year-old mother was talking about going to a funeral on Thursday, and she said, I could not hug somebody. It just didn't seem right. And as we get older, we get change, and those connections mean more and more. So some things to think about. I think we got one more slide here. So this wraps up some of the self-interconnectedness stuff I wanted to get at. And on this particular slide, I went a little bit deeper into brain-based learning by Kane and Kane. And the reason is, I believe on Tuesday, the VRETs will start going into some brain-based learning stuff. So if somebody would please read the first sub-bullet.
The brain has an infinite number of possible interconnections.
What does that mean to everybody?
Well, the way it functions, everyone can approach different aspects from the way they judge them.
Can we build new connections?
Surely.
There used to be a frame of mind or a mindset that brains actually stopped growing and stopped learning at the end of the late 20s, early 30s. But newer brain research has demonstrated that even old dogs can learn new tricks, and you can enhance your learning until you either suffer a death or have a physical health problem, like degenerative brain diseases like Alzheimer's or dementia.
It also suggests to me, Don, that there's more than one path to any given end.
Can you go deeper into that, Nicole?
So I think, don't quote me on this, but I believe that that's the way that people who've suffered things like strokes relearn things, is by developing new alternative pathways. So there's not just one fixed pathway in the brain that leads to a thought or an action or etc.
Absolutely. New neural pathways can be formed where you address a previous experience with a new experience. Absolutely. What about the second sub-bullet? Can somebody read that?
The brain is described as holographic or global or interconnected.
So that is a direct quote out of Kane and Kane's book from 1994. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that nothing exists in a vacuum, that everything that we know, everything that we think we know is influenced by everything else that we have crammed in there.
That would almost, to me, be related to the first bullet there, that the infinite number of possible interconnections there.
Different places in the book, but yes, certainly does.
Oh. And you talked before about, you know, as we get older, or the education model seems to be more isolated subjects, but you can't turn off what you know about other stuff. It's, you know, the New York Times had an article a while ago about reading. It says, once you know how to read, if your brain sees something that even resembles writing, it's going to start trying to read it because you can't turn it off. And you know, all those interconnections are likewise on all the time.
The automatic way we do things, automaticity is, I think, what Ray says all the time when we're teaching motor skills. It works the same way in the brain. In fact, that is the brain working the way it's supposed to. That you do it enough, that you build up those neural pathways, and the myelin is thick enough to retain the connectivity and longevity. I'll read the next one. Interconnectedness occurs when emotions and cognition come together and is key for the appreciation of life and learning. So in this group of lifelong learners, what are your thoughts on that?
Think how great you feel when you learn something.
Or how much you remember when bad things happen.
I'm an optimist.
Yes, thanks.
Or just that the way that you feel when you understand something is critical to the value you're going to place on whatever that new bit of information might be.
You know, it's fun. It's funny to read that today because I had a class going on today that I had done the day is it Sunday, right? I had done the classroom on Thursday night, but I wasn't doing the range part. But I was at the range fixing things and there. And one of the students came up to me from Thursday night and she said, "This class was amazing." She says, "Not only did I learn to ride a motorcycle, but I learned so much about myself." And I thought, wow, that was really introspective, of her. But this put it all together for her. So just what that says.
Exactly. So when we do put things together, we get kind of emotional about it because it strikes us. It sits with us. And even as Laura said, when we have bad things happen, unfortunately, those things get embedded into our brains probably more deeply sometimes than the good things that happen, because that's the way our society is, unfortunately. We're quick to find fault with others. If only we were so good to find good things with everybody. Imagine how that would change how our brains are wired. And I'm sure you've been focused with different students, Negative Nelly and Happy Harry, which one do you want to work with? Positive is always better. So learning is a product of who we are. And I'll bring this back to why, what if, and how. So when it comes to being a rider coach, why aren't we better? Why don't we communicate more? Why don't we share our thoughts and our best ways of doing things? What if we did? Where could we go with it? And how good would it be? So some parting thoughts as we come to the end of tonight's.
Are you talking with each other or with our students?
Yeah, could be both, couldn't it? Who doesn't learn from students?
I always learn from my students. I learn something every day from them. One of the reasons I like teaching these classes.
Absolutely. So interconnectedness again, not only within our tribe, but our future tribe. Because they'll be the ones that replace us, right? We hope eventually. This is my small list of references. There are more that are kind of in here, and I'll post this on the website. If you want to go out, once I cut the video, it'll be on the same page. You are more than welcome to go there. Then I would recommend heavily 2 books, and these are Ray kind of books. That's where I got them from his reading list. They're both Kane and Kane, and they're both from the 1990s. So good stuff. Still reading them, still learning them, still marking them up, always learning. I wanted to briefly go over this list, and I'll tell you why here in a minute. But if you take a moment and read down of all the things we've covered since the end of March, almost 4 months worth of us talking to each other and learning from each other. Is this all interconnected for us?
Yeah. A lot of ways I think it is, Don.
do all of these topics reinforce things that we're trying to learn to be better coaches?
We're always wanting to learn more. I mean, those of us who are out here want to learn more. We want to learn more, and we want to grow with where we are. So everything that we discuss is definitely worthwhile.
This does not include all the topics and information we pass back and forth every Wednesday night during the happy hour, does it? There's some interconnectedness there, but not fully. And I think about back when I started becoming a rider coach, and I wonder if I would have had this then, where would I be now? I also understand maybe I wasn't ready back then for some of these topics. They're pretty deep in some cases. But I think sharing them with all the great people who have helped Tribe Talks over the last 4 months, I'm greatly indebted to all these people who have given of their time and their efforts. And I want to say thank you if you're on here tonight. And I will also say, you all have the opportunity to carry this on in the future. But with that, I want to quickly wrap up before we go all the way and do the weekly poll. Interconnectedness tonight, I think everything we've done in the last 4 months and what we've talked about tonight, they're all interconnected. I think we're interconnected to the VRET stuff. I think we're interconnected as a tribe, and I appreciate that you all have done this. We've done the overview for Tribe Talks, so let me talk about the weekly poll. If you are ready, let me pull up the right one here so I don't repeat myself. And launching tonight's weekly Tribe Talk poll. 2 questions. I hope that you can see them okay. I'll give you a couple minutes to read and respond. And then I'll try to remember which answer was correct. I know there are a few people on mobile devices out there. The first question is, as a riding task is overlearned, a result is, first answer is A, increasing skilled performance, degraded or operational performance, degradation of operational performance, more spare mental capacity, more focus on performance versus behavior, and last one is driver overconfidence and inattention. Second question is, which of the following is true regarding driver and traffic safety? A, driver education is standardized around the country and teacher preparation programs have clearly defined standards and procedures. B, driver testing and licensing processes are standardized from state to state and their practices have proven to save lives. C, increased driving skill and knowledge are the most important factors associated with avoiding traffic crashes. D, highway and traffic engineering technology has more long-term crash reduction potential than education and enforcement countermeasures. And E, the problem of traffic crashes is much more one of drivers doing things that they know they ought not to do than of drivers not knowing what to do. We're at 70%, 80%, 85%, 19 of 20. I'll give it a few more seconds here. Rather quick. Oh, 100% tonight. Unbelievable. I don't think we've ever done that before. So with that, I'm going to end the polling and share the results. I got to make it a little bit bigger. Can everybody see all the answers? Dagnabbit, every time I do it, it drops. So the answer to the first question is C, more spare mental capacity. Because you have automaticity, you are able to remember more. It's part of the schema. Multiple things in a one line or a schema allows you to have more mental capacity. You're not focusing on every little bit. Number 2, which of the following is true regarding driver and traffic safety? Good answer is E. The problem of traffic crashes is much more one of drivers doing things that they know they ought not to do than of drivers not knowing what to do. So 80% on that. I think that's a success tonight. Has everybody had a good look? Is anybody a double winner? It happens, right? And I screwed up. We'll go back here.
You know, when you put those questions up, it's kind of like the math questions when like not an exact, you know, not, it's the questions. Your brain just kind of goes. Whoosh.
Somebody's testing me.
It's not the mathematical questions, it's the answer question.
It's the test anxiety coming back.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so can you see the shared screen again? I wanted to talk a little bit about Tribe Talk hiatus. I need to take a break. And I apologize, I need about a month off here. So the next full Tribe Talk will be August 2nd, 2020. And I'm still looking for people to present. So if you're interested in sharing a topic with the tribe, by all means, contact me. Chris, I think the next one will be you and me, if you don't mind, on the little topic we discussed about. Thumbs up, yes or no?
Sounds good.
All right, and I'll be looking for a couple more people to jump in so that we can be diverse as possible. So please forgive me for not being able to continue on, but I need about a month for research to prepare for some stuff I'm doing at a conference. The good news, though, is Tribe Talk Happy Hour will continue on Wednesdays, and if I'm not here, I will invite somebody else to certainly lead it up for everybody, because I think those are just as important, and the discussions we have there really are entertaining and educational, I think, for everybody to be there. So we'll continue with that. Nicole has asked me if I will be posting this presentation. Absolutely. I'll put the video on the page and then the presentation underneath of it. And I would like to just open it up real quick since we're just a little bit over. Are there any questions or comments to share with everybody else tonight? No jabs at dawn? Wow.
I like the later hour because it makes it easier if we work on the weekends to participate.
Thanks, Nicole. Yeah, we changed just because of that. I know people are working, and like Josh said, he was, right off the course, just got home, still stinky, sweaty, but he made it. So this gives some people more time. I'm hesitant to go any later because we start losing people on the East Coast. But that's why we do the videos, so other people can see it afterwards.
Don, thank you very much again. I don't blame you for taking a month off, sir.
You know, I tried really hard while I was traveling the last 3 weeks to do this, and it just became overwhelming. And I know I got some stuff to do. It's easier. We all take a break. I know a lot of people are going back to coaching. I think this gives everybody kind of a time to consolidate what we've discussed before we jump into more.
I am going to try to get into the happy hour on Wednesday nights when I'm not teaching in the evenings, but everybody have a good evening. Be safe out there and keep the rubber side down.
Absolutely.
Later, gang.
Bye, Dennis.
Have a good one.
All right. You all take care. Have a good night.